Hello there, my name is Aki Anastasiou, and with me is Vodacom Group CEO Shameel Joosub, and we are here to talk about the latest Vodacom trading update, Q1, and it's been a difficult trading condition. Shameel, lovely to see you, but despite the fact that the economy is in the state that it's in, you've got 8 million new customers, your revenue is up 4%, and you're approaching 60 million customers. I mean, that's impressive numbers. What's your take on that?
So it's been a tough quarter, as you say, okay? Specifically in South Africa, where I think mobile termination rates really did play a big role, and then obviously the consumers under pressure, and we've had intensified competition. So we're quite encouraged by the results. The overall result in South Africa was -2 in service revenue, plus 1.7 in revenue. And if we exclude MTRs, it would have been a lot better. So your MTR impact was almost 4%. It would have swung it from -2 to +2.
Yeah.
And your overall revenue to close to 4. So we're quite encouraged by the result, but we've had to cope with the MTR impact, which was almost 400 million in the quarter.
Yeah, I see that. But I mean, the data story is quite impressive, which I want to come to that in a second. But you talk about MTRs, and I see that your price per minute price has come down 25% to 68 cents. I mean, that's quite impressive when you look at where everybody else is focusing on those flat rates. And I see that you've also included your value bundles. I mean, that's where the true story is, and the true essence is in the savings of your customers. Those value bundles that Vodacom has introduced has had it's really good value for money for your customers.
Very much so. And what you're seeing today is we're selling almost 40 million bundles a month now, or more than 40 million. 40 million bundles a month. And effectively, if you look at the different bundles, there's a lot of value to be added. So we start off with the 2 Rand for 10 minutes, so it's 20 cents a minute on net. And then we go on to 4 Rand for an hour. These are the time-based ones and expires within an hour. And your effective rate there is 7-8 cents a minute. And then we have power hour, which is 10 Rand for the entire day. And then we have a on-net, off-net variant as well, which is 10 Rand for 20 minutes. So 50 cents a minute. So you've got all these different types of bundles, and you can actually choose. And then we have, similar kind of variants on data as well.
Yes.
So what we're seeing is that although there's a lot of, let's call it noise in the market in terms of 66 cents and 79 cents and so on, we're managing to achieve much lower effective price per minute. So our customers are enjoying much lower rates.
Okay, well that's quite interesting. But for me, the story that I find really interesting about your Q1 update is that the price of data has come down 30%, and it's actually, the consumption of data has gone up 70%. In every single quarter you announce a result, data is just shooting up and up and up. I mean, that's extraordinary.
Very much so. And I think what we're seeing is, firstly, it's coming from the growth in the data customers itself. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing a good growth in the data customers, but also the increase in the number of smartphones that we're putting out there. So as we're increasing smartphones, you see, and tablets for that matter, you're seeing a big uptake on data. So we now have 17 million customers using data on our network. So 52% of our base is now actively using data. So still a lot of growth left, if you think about it, because we've got to get all customers utilizing data, but we also got to get more smartphones out there. So we have 8 million smart devices, if you like, which is tablets and smartphones, but 17 million people using data. So we've got to close that gap still too, which brings a lot of additional growth, if you like.
But that smartphone penetration is also fascinating. In the lower end of the market, we're just seeing the prices increase. You've introduced some really good value devices, coming in at well under 1,000 Rand, and that must be driving that smartphone penetration way high as well, which is interesting to see. Shameel, despite the fact that it's been quite tough, we've seen Vodacom investing quite a bit of money into your network. I mean, I'm looking at your LTE base stations increased by 50%. You now have something like 1,380 base stations. You've also spent a lot of money in your 3G base stations. So you've spent a lot of money, according to this Q1 update, investing into your infrastructure, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. So the important part for us, I think this business is very much a investment business. So it's a capital intensive business. You've got to put the capital in to really see the results. So one of the competitive elements that we've used is to make sure that we're investing heavily. Firstly, to give our customers a better experience, but also to expand into new growth areas like 4G and unlock some new opportunities. So this coming year, we'll spend close to 9 billion rand in South Africa alone, which is an accelerated capital investment, and basically what we want to do is increase 3G coverage to 100% of the population on the one side, increase the 4G LTE coverage to quite significantly, and we want to double the size of our LTE network this year, and then starting to build fiber to the business in a bigger way, initial investment into fiber to the home, and also basically making sure that we have more fiber so that we can carry the type of traffic and volumes and uptick in data that we're seeing. So it's very much speaking to our data growth strategy and also our pricing strategy for that matter. Because you see, to be able to cope with the amount of data growth,
yes,
you have to have the capacity to be able to achieve it. But also to cope with bringing prices down, you need to create enough you need to be able to create capacity on the network so that you can balance it. So when you drive prices down, we then created smart products which try and uplift the volumes to offset the price decline.
I must tell you a true story. About 3 weeks ago, I went to the Drakensberg for a weekend, and I went on this long hike. It was a 3-hour hike to a place called World's View, which is about 3.5 hours away from Giant's Castle. But we were right on top of the Drakensberg, literally in the middle of nowhere. We didn't see anybody for 3 hours. You couldn't see any kind of inhabitants or anybody for kilometers. You were standing there. I switched on my cell phone, and there was Vodacom 3G in the middle of nowhere. I mean,
that's a good
I was trying to work out how did you guys get it there, but you talk about coverage across the whole country. There it was in the middle of nowhere. You couldn't see a human being for kilometers, and there's a 3G signal, which is quite interesting. So what's been in the news quite a bit, Shameel, is this whole deal with Neotel. Can you give us an update? I mean, I know the Competition Commission is involved. I know ICASA is involved. Where does this deal stand? And also, why is Vodacom doing this? Why are you buying Neotel?
So I think, firstly, if we look at where we stand currently, we've made the submissions to both the Competitions Commission and to the regulator. We work in a regulated environment, so it is subjected to regulatory approvals and so on. And secondly, because of the size of the transaction, it has to go to the Competitions Commission as well. So we made the two submissions, and hopefully, we can get some quick or good feedback from them. So we're hoping it's not a long, drawn-out process. And we're hoping to conclude that within the next 6 to 9 months.
So the next quarter, you'll have some kind of news on your acquisition, or the next.
We hope so. One cannot presuppose either institution.
Yes.
The other part is that the benefits for us. There's multiple benefits for us as a company. So I think we're seeing some of the slowdown in normal customer because we're sitting at 140% plus penetration in South Africa. So your normal traditional voice business is slowing. Your data business is growing, but your data business requires a lot more fiber.
Yes.
So, all the Neotel acquisition basically speaks to some of the growth areas that we want to explore. The other big growth area that we see is enterprise and really fixed services. So I think it's no secret in South Africa that the number of DSL lines in the country is very low when you compare it by world standards. So there's definitely an opportunity there. And also we have very little fiber to the home, fiber to the business when you compare to world standards. And so we see that as an opportunity to further grow into a new segment and really improve our performance in that segment as well. Because we've already captured the mobile opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at Neotel, what are we getting? So firstly, with Neotel, you're buying a customer base, you're buying revenues, you're buying profits, and so on. So that's the first part. The second part is you're buying capability, and that for us is a big deal. So Neotel has fixed capability. It's the second network operator. It has the people and so on that we need to do it. Thirdly, when we look at it, it has 22,000 kilometers of fiber. We couple that with our fiber assets, and we're much closer to the housing estates, to the enterprises, to your SMEs and so on. So it allows us to be able to capture that opportunity much quicker and much faster. And then it says spectrum assets as well, and with the growth in data that we're experiencing, we are struggling to be able to cope with the amount of traffic. So Neotel will give us some breathing space, if you like, using some of their spectrum assets. And finally, also, building out fiber, we can basically use their capability. When we overlay the networks, we can then increase the level of investment and capitalization of the company. And in doing that, if you look at what Neotel spends versus the 9 billion that we spend, if we can capitalize this company properly, we see a big opportunity to grow.
That's fascinating. So, I mean, very much a data-driven economy. And the companies that are out there are just making these demands. There's a healthy appetite for data, and we're seeing it just growing and growing. I mean, this is where the world is going today. But I see from a business side, that's one side, but I would imagine that you could use the same infrastructure to take fiber to the home, for example. As you mentioned, that all of these pipes pass across residential areas as well. So it's certainly going to enhance the Vodacom business and just make it a lot more functional, give you that breathing space. I would say, like, the highway from here to Pretoria has got 8 lanes, you're going to add another 4 lanes and the traffic's going to be a lot smoother. Is that a fair analogy to use?
Exactly. And I think basically what's happening is voice doesn't use as much capacity as data does. But when you start to use data, you need, and with the rapid growth that we're seeing in data, the 70% plus growth in data, what's happening is that you need bigger and bigger pipes to carry it. So you need fiber. And as you're putting down this fiber to your base stations and so on, you'll end up passing down the road anyway.
Yes.
And then it does beg the question, why don't you pick up some of the office parks, some of the housing estates along the way? And that's precisely where we're going. So we're also seeing data explode in multiple ways.
Yeah.
So both from an enterprise perspective, because of basically utilizing new software and so on. And we have the capability to host that in the cloud, and more software being accessed via the cloud, but you need a proper data connection. So if you're going to be using something like Pastel or Siebel in the cloud, you have to access that. So you're going to have a decent connection to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. And the decent connection, you can't have a substandard line. You're going to have sufficient capacity, and that's where fiber to the business starts to play a bigger role. And then if you look at even the home and the amount of data that's being consumed, but also in many countries where you have fiber in, you're basically getting TV and so on, yes, over and video over over your DSL line or over your fiber line.
And we haven't even seen that happen in this country.
No.
It's extraordinary. I mean, what's extraordinary, Shameel, for me is that 5 years ago, if you had asked an expert to say, can you predict how much data we're going to be using in 5 years from now? Nobody ever would have imagined that your average consumer, your average business is using so much data. So it's great to see that you're doing this enhancement of Neotel. Now for the really, really tough question, and I always like to leave this right for the end, Shameel. What is your favorite app that you're using at the moment?
My favorite app?
And don't
probably
give us the regular
app.
one that everyone is using. I want to know what Shameel Joosub has discovered recently, the Vodacom Group CEO, an app that nobody's heard of yet. Is there something that you said, wow, this is cool?
Well, I think it's got to be Voucher Cloud.
Voucher Cloud?
Yeah.
Yes, that is cool. That's an interesting technology where it's evolving.
Well, I mean, so it's basically, we've launched Voucher Cloud and we have already 1.6 million unique users using this stuff. What I think is pretty cool is getting the discounts, when you go out there. So, it's 25 Rand for a movie as an example. So I find it quite interesting the kind of discounts that you're having, and that's available, through these apps. And we're enriching it all the time. So, that for me is probably the most exciting one that we have out there. And then the one that I use most often is probably the soccer app.
Oh, yes.
We're basically, with the World Cup just having passed.
And I'm not going to mention Manchester United. It's too soon to start that off in the season. But good luck for the Premiership. I know that your team, you've got a brand new coach. I think I'm quite optimistic about your team. There you go. We're talking a bit of sport, a bit of apps, but the real essence was Vodacom's Q1 trading results, and they certainly look optimistic. Incredible stuff coming in from data. That's Shameel Joosub talking to us about Vodacom's Q1 trading update.